My name is Henry Ernest. I'm going to start off with a personal story of mine in Iraq in 2005. My team that I was with, we were in this house performing a mission when we got into a firefight with the enemy. And it was a lengthy firefight. It went on for a few minutes. And in that time, you shoot a lot of bullets. So we're getting to the point where it was getting pretty dangerous as far as running out of ammunition. So we had to call in backup. And when our reinforcements or our backup arrived, they had no way of identifying which house we were in because houses in Iraq don't have street signs. So you have to find, and they all look the same. So the only way that the good guys and the rest of the army can find us is if we hung a flag out of the window. So I was the one designated for the mission to carry a flag. So when they got close enough, I hung the flag out of the window so they knew where we were, so they were able to pull us out without any of us losing any of our friends or anything like that. So that was one personal incident where the American flag itself saved us on that mission. For this speech, I'm going to talk about how the desecration of the American flag should be considered a criminal offense and not protected under the First Amendment. I want to start with what the flag means, what it means to me personally, and why I think it should be honored and not protected under the First Amendment. And I'm going to go into some foreign countries and their rules and laws that they enforce as far as their national flag. And I'm going to talk about some of the court cases that have gone on in the U.S. that have transpired to make the flag what it is today as far as being protected under the First Amendment as a form of free speech. The flag in itself, there's 13 stripes on the flag, and those stand for what?
13 colonies.
The first 13 colonies of our country. There's 50 stars for 50 states. Do you know what the red symbolizes on the flag?
The blood that Americans shed?
That's some of it.
Yeah.
The red symbolizes the hardiness and valor. The white is purity and innocence. And the blue is vigilance, perseverance, and justice. So the flag goes more into just 50 stars and 13 stripes. It goes into what we stand for as a country. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner on September 14th, 1814, after seeing the flag fly over Fort McHenry, and it became our anthem in 1931. So it was this huge battle, and he's watching it from a ship. And everybody on the ship thought that there was no way Fort McHenry could stand until the morning. And then in the morning, when all the dust settled and all the bombing stopped, he saw our flag. And he was so inspired by this piece of cloth that he decided to write this song, which is now our national anthem. In 1963, Barry Bishop put the flag at the top of Mount Everest. So he carried this cloth with him to the top of the highest point on Earth and put it up there. 1805 was the first time the flag was flown overseas on foreign ground. It was flown in a fort that was in Libya, Fort Bernier, on the shores of Tripoli. So again, foreign country, this piece of cloth means so much to Americans that they want to take it with them wherever they go. Some of the things that we hold as cherished, things or ways that we cherish the flag, for example, are we fly it higher than any other flag in the country. So whether it's a state flag or a religious flag or any other nation's flag, or the U.S. flag is always flown higher. We don't let it touch the ground. We respect the flag. So those are just some of the meanings of what the flag is to us as Americans. And going into some of the different countries where it's legal and illegal to, desecrate the flag. Some of the places where it is legal to desecrate the flag, meaning you can catch it on fire, you can stand on it, you can do all that kind of stuff. The USA, Australia, Canada, and Denmark all have their desecration of the flag is protected under their free speech. And some places where it's illegal would be like Israel, where in Israel, for example, you can get fined up to $15,000 and up to 3 years in prison for disgracing their flag. And if you're found guilty of disgracing the flag, the court can fine you. And then if you apply for funding from Israel, they can deny you because you're found to be guilty of disgracing the flag. France fines up to $2,000 for desecrating the flag, or even recording it happen. So if you're just recording someone standing on the flag, you can get fined $2,000. And then if you publicly desecrate the flag or the anthem, they can fine you up to $10,000 if it's during a state-run event. So those are just some of the different places where it's legal and illegal to desecrate the flag. Now the U.S. has transformed over time as far as the flag was protected. You couldn't let it touch the ground. You were fined if it touched the ground or if you burnt the flag in a public display, things like that. But here in the not so near past, things have changed. And it started with Texas versus Johnson, which was a court case that happened. This guy Johnson, who was a member of the Revolutionary Communist Youth Brigade, which they're a very hateful group. They were marching during the 1984 Republican National Convention. So they were marching through Dallas, Texas. They were catching stuff on fire. They were breaking stuff. They were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, Johnson, once they got to the Dallas City Hall, took out the American flag, poured kerosene on it, and caught it on fire. And they were doing a whole bunch of chants against America. He went to court. He was fined $2,000, and he was going to face up to a year in prison. Well, he appealed that, which means he fought it, and it lost. Well, he appealed it again, and the court overturned. So the court said, well, he is protected under the First Amendment. That is a form of free speech. And because of that court decision, it changed the decision of 48 states in our country to where they made it legal to desecrate the flag of the United States. So from that, the Flag Protection Act of 1989 came into play, which was the first attempt to overturn Texas versus Johnson. So the court was saying, well, the flag needs to be protected. And it was the first time that they brought it up, it was shot down. The second time, the first President Bush Sr., allowed the bill to become law without signature. So he was saying, I'm going to say that right now for a fact the flag is protected. So the flag, because of what he did, the Flag Protection Act was not new legislation, but an amendment to an existing U.S. code. So he pretty much said, criminalizing the flag was punishable by imprisonment and a fine and all this kinds of stuff if you did that. Well, that same year, in 1989, U.S. versus Eichen came into play, which they invalidated the federal law against the Flag Protection Act, saying, well, it is a form of free speech. It is protected under the First Amendment, which going into the First Amendment says that Congress can't make any law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise of free speech and things like that. So they're pretty much saying that you're allowed to step on the flag and do all kinds of stuff like that. But it's funny because the First Amendment says Congress makes no law respecting an establishment of religion, but we all respect church. We all respect church grounds, schools, graveyards, cemeteries. We all pull over if there's a funeral procession. It's an unspoken human nature, decency, to respect those things because they stand for something more. So even though people say the flag is protected under the First Amendment, is it really? In our human nature, is it really protected under the First Amendment? So talking about what the flag to me means personally, talking about what it symbolizes as a flag, as its colors, going into other countries' laws, going into our own laws that transpire to make it protected under the First Amendment. I just want to say that the flag is more than just a piece of cloth. It's a symbol to all of us Americans, whether we're white or black or Mexican or whatever it is. We're all Americans living under this flag. You can go to a foreign country and they'll identify you by the red, white, and blue. Soldiers that die overseas come home and they're buried underneath the flag. It's a symbol of our country. It's a symbol of us as Americans. And that's why I feel like it shouldn't be considered a form of free speech, and it should be a criminal act to desecrate the American flag.